Hey everybody, welcome to the CoinGeek Weekly live stream. I'm your host. Oh, you can't see my hand on that one. There it goes. There, got to freeze for a minute. Kurt Wuckert Jr. If you are watching, please like, subscribe, hit the alert bell, and let people know that you're watching live. When we do these shows, so I don't script basically anything. So every time you ever see me, whether I'm a guest on somebody's show or doing the show, I don't have notes. I don't have like a script I'm reading. There's nothing on screen. There's no teleprompter. I don't have the hot feed directly from the desk of the supervillains that are in charge of everything or anything like that. So we wing these shows, and by we I mean mostly me, but also Alex, who does a really good job of picking up comments and all of that. So he chooses all of the commentary that you see, the stuff that pops up, and this is why I love him. I need him, frankly. So he's a really great executive producer, and so Alex deserves a lot of credit. So before we get started, I have a really interesting guest today that I'm excited to share with you. I made an announcement the other day that this episode today might be the most watched episode of all time, but the reason for that was well, you'll probably find out at some point in the future. So, but this is not the gigantic bombshell episode that I was sort of expecting it to be. But I'm really excited because the guest is well more exciting to me than that. In that it's not just another random Bitcoin person or a story. It's somebody using Bitcoin in the martial arts space, which for fans of the show, you may recall that I am myself something of a martial arts maven. In fact, I was at the gym for 2.5 hours last night and had a banger sparring session and posted a picture to my Twitter, like covered in sweat. So, but yeah, my wife and I met doing martial arts. God, when was that? 2013, I think, is when we met. I was a coach at Carlson Gracie team, and she joined up as a Muay Thai ace, and we turned her into an MMA fighter, and so that was a lot of fun. So that's my backstory on that. So for anybody that was interested in a big banger Bitcoin story, probably not going to be today. Although there is a major Bitcoin connection to this guest and his business and their backstory. So we'll get into that, and we'll learn some really interesting stuff. I never even asked, but I'm sure we have an advertiser for this episode, and we can cut to that advertiser sometime in the next 15 seconds here. And then when we come back, we'll have Christian Giang. So, Alex, if you can fire.
Right now, millions are building the internet of value. But the best version of this inevitable future isn't possible unless the data that fuels it can be exchanged securely and with confidence. This is a critical moment in defining our shared future. That's why nChain offers the tools to protect the data we'll need to build that future. The Internet of Value works because we do. Join us in securing the tomorrow we all share. nChain. Data without question.
Hello, sir. How are you?
Hi, Kurt. Thank you very much. I'm doing well. Thank you very much for the nice introduction. I'm really excited about our talk today.
Absolutely. So I have to ask everybody, most of the guests that I've ever had on the show, like I've had some interaction with in the past. I don't think you and I have ever talked.
No, I think it's the first time.
Yeah. So but very nice to completely cold meet you. What's your first of all, what's your Bitcoin story? I gotta hear, how did you get involved in a Bitcoin startup? Have you been a Bitcoiner for like 10 years, or is this pretty new for you?
So let me start. So I think so as you can see, I'm representing Comet IQ. I'm the CTO of the startup called Comet IQ, and we're basically a startup that works in the sports analytics space. So we do sports analytics for MMA, and how we got into Bitcoin is it's a funny story actually. So I personally don't have a strong Bitcoin connection. Like I just got into it this year. And together with my co-founder Tim, so we actually we started this project like a year ago, and at some point started applying for different type of incubators and accelerators. And beginning of this year, we got accepted into one of those, which is called Satoshi Block Dojo, which is based in the UK. And this incubator, it has kind of focus on blockchain, so on Web 3.0 and blockchain. And this was the first time when we got in touch with this, and we were like, okay, does it even make sense for us to join this incubator? Because I mean, our business is not, or the core of our business was not based on blockchain. But then we went through this incubator. We got in touch with all the infrastructure, and we, through the program, we actually found a very nice application of using it for our business.
Fascinating. So what's your martial arts background? How did Combat IQ get started up? That's got to be a fun story.
Yeah, so also that is, I mean, this is maybe a bit more straightforward. So I've been practicing martial arts since my childhood, basically. I was doing a lot of competitions as well, in national, international level. And then, yeah, at some point, I wasn't doing it mostly in the youth categories. But at some point, I had to enter university, and I dropped it for a little bit. I mean, I always kept practicing, but then I had to slow down a little bit. So when I entered college, I did electrical engineering and bachelor and master, then did my PhD in robotics intelligent systems, and then continued a few years as a researcher in the machine learning space, and still engineering. And at some point, I got in touch with Tim, and we were like, hey, he was like, do you want to join me in this project? And it was basically exactly the perfect thing for me, because I could combine my old passion, the martial arts, and bringing all my knowledge that I gained through my academic path into it to create this value to this project. So basically, Combat IQ is a dream that came true for me. So basically, working on what I love with what I'm good at. So this is just perfect.
That is the dream right there.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. So there's a lot that goes into sports science. Up until the 1970s and 80s, it was a lot of, hey, we're just going to scout good athletes. We're going to pay for the best guys we got and whatever. And this was in everything from baseball, soccer, football, including combat. But actually, combat sports have typically always been not so much about the skill, but a lot of just like promotional dollars and whatever else, marketability.
Yeah.
But we started to see an increasing amount of science that goes into the application of building a better team in the fight sports. That has a lot more to do with the camp, which is a thing that like fans don't usually see. But whereas in something like baseball, you'll see a cohesive team actually on the field. But with machine learning, I imagine that's gone just hockey stick exponential. What does that look like in the background? How do you even design an algorithm to deal with fight science? Because I mean, the difference between somebody with a Shotokan karate background and a Muay Thai background, how well can a machine learning algorithm even determine the difference between like a chambered crane kick versus like a Thai teep or something like that? Can you help me out with that?
So it's definitely, I think martial arts is, and there's a reason why martial arts is still one of the sports that has not been catered with data-backed science yet. I mean, you see it in a lot of different sports, like today, soccer, American football, basketball, baseball, as you name it. All of them are using so much data, especially when you're talking about team sports, when it's about like how people move on the field, these kind of things. And there's a lot of things you can do. Until today, it was still much more challenging to do the same things for martial arts, as you can imagine. Like there are so many situations, especially when you're in clinch fight or in your ground fight, like it gets a bit messy, right?
Yeah.
And having a computer like analyzing that until today was very, very difficult and challenging. So, but what happened in the past few years with the advances in technology changed a lot of what we can actually do, and this is exactly what we are leveraging right now. So the recent advances in computer vision, for example, allow us to really trace back all the different movements that someone is doing during a fight, and we use this data. Like we can really look at the fine-grained details, like what type of micro movements does someone do before they attack, or what type of combinations does someone set up. And this allows us to use all this data to then kind of in an automated way analyze the styles of people fighting, and based on this data, then even make predictions on how one fighter would fight against the other, for example.
Very interesting. So what is the core of your business? I can think of a few things that you can do with machine learning and blockchain and sort of proof of work logic. Everything from odds making to maintaining the authenticity of scoring or all kinds of things. What are you doing? First of all, what does the whole company do? And then what does the blockchain aspect of it, like how does that integrate?
Yeah. So as I said in the beginning, our goal is to become the leading data provider for combat sports.
Mhm.
So the same way as it exists for all the different sports, it doesn't exist in this way at this moment for the combat sports. We're talking about mixed martial arts. We're talking about boxing. I mean, in some of these promotions, you have some stats like how many strikes would someone throw, or like simple kind of things, right?
Yeah.
But using the computer, you can do a lot of more things and basically our business is, the idea of our business is to enable this this extraction of data from fights. So provide this data to a lot of different people that can use this data. For example, it can be the fans, to engage the fans in a more captivating way. It can be the promotions. We can provide this data to the promotions so they can do useful things with it. Obviously, it can be used for sports books as well, so they can do make their odds and make predictions. Yeah. But in the same way, it can also be used by athletes and coaches themselves to actually improve their training. And where the
analysis, interesting.
And where the blockchain comes in is basically at this point, well, there's a lot of different ways of how we imagine this can be used. At this specific moment, we're using the blockchain to publish our predictions. So we are already working with our data to kind of predict fights at this moment for the UFC. And we're using the blockchain to publish our predictions before the fights on the chain, so that use it kind of like a data audit tool. So we can show that these predictions have been made before the fight actually happened, and we didn't just manipulate them afterwards. And this can, of course, go further on. Like we can, once we're in real time, all these predictions will be published in real time, so that there's no confusion about when these predictions have been made.
That's incredible. And here's what I like about this is I originally, when I first got into mixed martial arts, I was at Carlson Gracie Team MMA in Chicago. Yeah. And they were just an old school Brazilian, gritty, just dirty, terrible place, but everybody was tough as nails. We had NCAA wrestlers, and guys would show up to train every day with, I lost a tooth last night, black eye, like just no fight science at all. It was just
awesome.
Dude, fight. Yeah. And exactly. You know, I walk in at whatever I was, 22, 23 years old after a lifetime of doing Kempo karate. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is it. This is the big show, you know? And at the time there was guys like Ricardo Lamas, like Stefan Bonner was mostly retired, but would still sort of spin through, like that kind of thing. So it was just nice. That era, which was just a great era in the UFC too. But it's so different now when I think of a team like Jackson's MMA out in Vegas or something, for example, that plays classical music and has fight science as a core to their business model. So I imagine I imagine you would get a client like that who would just be super, super interested in this data. My concern for you would be that whoever buys the data first wouldn't want the other camps to also have it, though. Like, how do you deal with that? Or what would your price be if somebody says, hey man, we'll give you $50 million for the algorithm if you just let us have it and nobody else?
Yeah, so this is a part of how we're going to structure the business for sure. Like, I mean, it's not going to be very different from how similar business is being run in other sports, right? So you'll have for sure, like, I mean, many NFL teams, for example, they have their own data science teams today. So I think, I mean, time's going to tell like where we can get with our technology. We will see like who's actually going to be the main customers that we're gonna deliver our technology to. But as long as, I mean, if we think, especially if we're thinking about the business to business model, I think it's less critical because we're basically catering to promotions. So it's kind of like we are neutral in that sense. Like we don't give any advantage or disadvantage to any of the fighters. Once we are talking to gyms, for example, I think this is where it's going to be critical to figure out like how can we set this up so that yes, maybe certain gyms don't get too much of an advantage, or is there's going to be a competition between gyms also because data is going to be part of the training. So as we can see from other sports as well.
Why would I'm thinking of the gym, Islam and DC. They're at AKA, if I recall. Those guys, I could see them looking at the data science and saying, screw it. We're just gonna train, man. Nobody out wrestles us, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And so I'd be very curious to see how that plays out over. And you really need like a decade of data in order to see, hey, did the data science camps really pull away from the others? And that's fascinating.
We have a UFC coach in our advisory team, and she's very keen in use. I mean, obviously, she's one of these very early adapters, and she's very keen in integrating these this type of technologies. But I mean, we're also aware that it's at this point maybe it's not for everyone. Like there's still going to be some coaches, teams, athletes that are still reluctant about this type of technologies. But I mean, again, like time will tell, like whether this can give you an edge or not. And I think if it will, then necessarily most of them will transition. Right?
Sure. I think for a lot of fight fans, myself included, I think the biggest problem consistently at the top of the sport is the judging. And I watched the UFC fights on Saturday. And I'm not going to name drop. Maybe I will. But I watched at the end the O'Malley fight.
Yeah, a lot of discussions on that one. Yeah.
And I think any casual fan even would look at that fight and say, there was a lot of really bad calls to give that win the way that it went. Yeah. And I'm curious, is there a way to, on the fly, and that could be the problem, is that you need a decision in 5 minutes or less. Is that something that could be done, to have maybe 3 physical human judges and then 1 computer that gives its version of the fight? Is that possible?
Absolutely. This is what we're at this moment working on. Like we want to be able to, at least at this stage, provide a tool that can support judges in making the decisions, so they can double check whether what their gut feeling tells them, or like what their observations tell them, kind of matches with something that a neutral machine would tell them. I think this is definitely one of our like medium-term goals, is to have something that can support these moments, and also for the fans, and because so many times that people have to accept these decisions without much data that backs up these final decisions. So I think this can help. Creating a lot more. I mean, maybe it might create more discussions as well, but at least at some level there, it adds something that can help.
No, that's awesome. And for me, I don't know. I have mixed feelings about it. Here's why. So I come from. I watched the original UFC live. I must have been not even 10 years old, probably. And I remember watching the pay-per-view. Maybe it wasn't the original one. It might have been like 2 or 3 or something like that. But I remember watching, and it was always that discussion of who would beat who in a fight, and let's throw in a boxer and a sumo guy and whatever else, right? And so that was the most exciting thing maybe in my whole life. And now I actually watch UFC a lot less than I used to. I used to never miss a fight, but now for the last probably 5 or 6 years, I'll watch the big ones. I watched the big fight this past weekend and things, but and part of that is the scientific nature of it, is that MMA has sort of become its own. It's already become very scientific relative to even what it was 5 years ago or 10 years ago, et cetera, when there was a clear division between Muay Thai and wrestling and jiu-jitsu, and you'd have these specialists that were okay at the other things. And now, like, the athleticism and these guys, a mid-rank guy today would destroy anybody from 10 years ago in the same division, probably. But it's also it starts to feel sort of programmatic, right? And so that, to me, takes a little bit of the romanticism out of it, which I don't know. I feel like there's been the journey of MMA in the first place to truly show that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is better than everything else. That was the original stated purpose of the Ultimate Fighting Championship. But do you worry about something like that, where you invent something that changes the game? I think these are the kind of conversations that people had about synthesizers and electronic music in the 1970s and 80s too. Like, we're just going to ruin everything. And I would argue maybe we did.
No,
so what do you think?
totally see your point. Like I can see it a lot as well in soccer, because I'm also a huge soccer fan, and
Sure.
and in the past years also, like with all the signs coming in, and it's getting more and more professional, and I mean, it's getting also very monetized, this kind of thing. So I think for certain type of fans, this can be a bit critical. So I think people like, like this hardcore fans, like they that really, like you said, like you were there for the first minute, like it feels a bit weird. On the other hand, I also think like it's just inevitable. Like it's like always is with humanity, like we keep evolving, and people will always try to find ways to improve themselves. And what we can also say is that through this process, I mean, performance is going up like crazy. I mean, like what humans are able to do today is compared to like what it was like 40, 50 years ago. It's just a different level. And I mean, you always have like these two sides of things, like on one side, like things are getting like there's so much explosiveness, so much athleticism, like so much thing around it. On the other side, you lose a bit this more tradition, I'm calling it. Like it's really something about traditions, maybe a bit melancholia, like this kind of things. But it's hard to bring these things together. But I think it's also I mean, maybe the tasks of the promotions to think about like how we can unify these things. But I think it's not possible to just say, okay, let's stop all advancement, all development in this space,
progress.
because it's also not going to happen. Like, and like you're going to say that, but it's someone's going to do it, and you got to keep up with that person. So so I think it's
that's fair. And I lived through. I'm from Chicago. I live in Florida now, but I was also a kid during the Michael Jordan era of the NBA, and so I watched the transition from what I think of as classic basketball to modern, and now it's not even modern basketball. Actually, the game has really changed again the last 5 or 6 years. But when I was a kid in the 90s, Michael Jordan was the first guy who made the team like lift in the off season. Hey guys, there is no off season. We're going to come back with 20 more pounds of muscle as a team. And this is why they bulldozed everybody for a few seasons straight. But then everybody did, and now everyone's at that level. And now you have to be a world-class athlete on top of being very good at basketball and everything else. So
exactly.
It is. It's just fascinating. But there's that part of me that's obviously romanticizes the old world, but I also don't want to be that music fan or whatever who rock and roll died in 1972, which is also not true. And so
it's also probably a generational thing, like like people that grow up today, like they will have a different view on all these things as well. Like I mean when we're talking to our parents, like they're gonna say like how back in the days everything was better, right? Like everything was more original, everything was more
they were authentic and we aren't.
Exactly.
Here's an interesting question from Messy Times, Chris, whose show I've been on a couple of times in the past. Does your tool use multi-angled high-speed angles to capture data? I'm very curious too. And that's got to be. I imagine the higher the resolution and everything, the more intricate your data set, right?
Yeah. So interestingly, as I said, like I mean, I cannot disclose too much here, but so with the advances in technology lately, like there's no need for super expensive high-end hardware anymore. So we can work with, I mean, it's not like I mean, we can work with devices that all of us have at home, kind of. We at this point with our current version, we're still in multi-view, because obviously, like when you have occlusions, you wanna kind of correct that through other angles where you can see what's happening. This is the most straightforward way to do that. And we're currently running our technology in that way, but we also already in a quite far development stage of working with a monocular technology. So something where you can just have one angle, and using, again, machine learning, computer vision, finding algorithms that can actually deal with occlusions through artificial intelligence. So it kind of estimate where something would have to be, because it knows from the context what's going on, right? So this is our next big step. So we hope that this technology is it's going to go out. So because this is going to change a lot, because at this point we're working with, if we're working with multi-view, it's still a bit cumbersome because you have to set up a lot of things and you have to involve a bit more hardware. Once you go towards monocular, things are going to be much more straightforward.
Interesting. It's wild. What do you think is the hardest thing to capture? That's in my opinion, the reason people boo at grapplers is because they don't see what's going on. Like, you really have to feel grappling much more than you can visualize, compared to kickboxing, which is very clear who's a better kickboxer when you watch a fight. How do you deal with that? Like, the pressure of a Khabib Nurmagomedov is going to be very different than the pressure of a, somebody who, is a technically good wrestler but doesn't have the same grind, right?
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think obviously striking is as of today, it's straightforward. So I think it's something that also, I mean, as a human, it's easy to analyze how striking is easy, like more or less. Still straightforward to analyze like how striking is going. So also for our algorithms, this is one of the easier tasks. And yeah, as you point out correctly, so it's more about the situations where things are a bit, even for the human, is a bit more complicated to analyze. Like, we talk about clinch, we're talking about grappling, we're talking about ground fight. These kind of situations is where we will have to where our contribution comes in. So this is where we are currently working on. But what we see is that, so basically, so as we said, like, even for a human, it's difficult to understand what's going on there. So we try to have the support of the machine, actually, that can quantify things. Like, you can quantify stuff like explosiveness. You can quantify like how fast something is moving, like how you're moving, like which directions you're moving, these kind of things. And use this data to then provide it to the fans so that they can understand like what's going on when two guys are grappling, like who is in advantage at which moment. And this is providing that, for example, as live visualizations while they're grappling. These kind of things can be very interesting.
It's incredible. I'm super excited. What stage of development are you guys in? Is there something anybody can look at or tinker with, or is this something coming in 6 months or 2 years, or where are you guys at?
So when we came out of the incubator, which was in July 2022, I think, we had an MVP, which is still ongoing. So there we publish our predictions for the UFC fights, for all the UFC events, every 1-2 weeks, whenever they have events. Plus, we have a demo, a little video demo, which shows the computer vision part, so how we actually detect the joints. At this stage, so this is like 4 months ago, 3 months ago. So now we have advanced a lot further. Our technology is ready to be tested with promotions and gyms. So this is our current stage. So we're now reaching out to different promotions. We went, for example, to UK lately. We're in touch with some American promotions as well, where we're setting up pilot tests with them. So we're actually testing the technology in the last final test to see like what these people are needing. And the idea is that by the beginning of next year, we'll have something that we can
Awesome.
really showcase, and we can go public with this. Yeah.
So your background, you mentioned that you have a martial arts background. I would love to hear a little bit more. What did you practice? Do you still practice regularly? I imagine in order to really do this well, you would need to train at an MMA gym at least a little bit. What's your story?
So I have a more traditional martial arts background. So I started with karate, sports karate, and as I said, I did a lot of competitions in the youth categories, and was more or less successful, I would say. Then this was more sports karate, right? So this is semi-contact. It's about speed. But there's a lot of elements that you can also see in MMA. Like
I did it for years. Yeah, point karate is really good.
your tactics and stuff like this kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And then once I grew a bit older, I also tried out a lot of different martial arts as well. Kickboxing. I did jiu-jitsu for a while. I did judo as well. I think. Yeah, it gives me kind of a holistic idea of how martial arts are working. And then, as I said, so once I entered university, I had to slow down a little bit. But now that I'm working with combat, I'm now working with Combat IQ. I'm totally back. So I just went back to karate training yesterday.
Nice.
After a long time. And I'm really looking forward to also going back to all the other different sports. I want to try out also BJJ. I never tried out BJJ actually, so I want to see like how that goes. And it's going to definitely be part of my daily routine, like going back to really practicing martial arts.
That's awesome, man. If I could figure out a way to make jiu-jitsu part of my job again, because I was the same. I was 6 days a week. I was the jiu-jitsu coach for our MMA team, and then I had to move on at some point, obviously. So
no, I can only recommend it. I mean, it feels so good to be back. Like it's an amazing feeling. And I really realized how much I missed it. Be part of my life.
No, for sure. Here's a question from Brandon Ward. Do you see a correlation, and I think you touched on this a little bit, but maybe what do you think will be the correlation or your effect on combat IQ and how it affects sports betting? And I guess there's always that opportunity for the early people that realize the value of a tool will outperform other people, probably. And then if that's the case, then people will catch up in a year or two or whatever, and then everything just balances out at a higher level. But what do you think that looks like? Are there people you want to work with in that space? I imagine that could be an opportunity in and of itself to say, hey, your sports book could be the best sports book in the world if you come on with us first, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's not a secret that one pillar of our business model is also to provide this data to sports books, because I mean, it's also what we observed in other sports, that this type of service providers they sell this data basically to sports books. And so, I mean, again, like we already published our MVP, where we publish the predictions for the UFC every week or every other week, depending on when they have the events. We evaluate our algorithms at this point. So basically, at this moment, the data is the predictions are made based on publicly available data, because we don't have all the data yet that we can extract from the video streams ourselves. And at this point, we already, with our algorithms, we reach between 60 and 70% prediction accuracy. So at this point, we're like 60, 65, I guess. It depends a bit on which is not too bad.
How does a typical odds maker do? What are their percentages usually?
Yeah, it's around that. So I think we're around the same range there. But then I mean, this we expect that this is going to go up by a lot of percentage, because once we can have our fine-grained, because we're using data now that everyone else has as well, and once we have our own data and we can train our models based on our own data, we expect this accuracy to go
makes sense,
go much further.
Sure. How about
I think there was a second question by Brandon, I guess.
Where I think he was adding to it. Yeah, professional bettors and things.
Yeah, this is another business opportunity for us, of course. Like not catering to the sports books, but actually to the people who are placing the bets. I think. Sure. I mean, there's also something that we observe from different sports that, of course, professional bettors, they are looking for this data, and it doesn't exist for MMA, or not at this extent. Whereas if you want to bet on like football teams, like you have so much data that you can go through, and all these bettors, they are kind of data nerds, right? Like they want all this data to make their own conclusions about who's going to win or not.
For sure. It's funny. This was what I was going to ask. So Alex Moon asking, will we see super fights that never happened? As in the system studies Muhammad Ali and Tyson Fury and then puts them in a ring to determine who'd win. I think additionally, the part that was exciting to me is I've gotten super into artificial intelligence artwork lately. And I feel like a really good AI could take the data and then make a fight out of it that is like we could watch it. So what do you think of that?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think that's a super cool idea, and it's something that also we already brainstormed about. Like, I mean, with what we have, this would be totally possible. Like, we can at this point we can even say like who would win, but then that's not so exciting, right? Like we want to see like how that would actually evolve. Yeah. And with more data, what we can actually simulate the whole fight. We can simulate the whole fight. We're also talking about metaverse here, for example. Like you can go watch an imaginary fight between Ali and Fury and see how that's going to go. Yeah, I think all of that is possible. Like it's once we have the data, You just need to make use of that data to create new situations that can be interesting.
No, that's awesome. I just thought of the worst version of that. And I used to watch some show, I think it was on History Channel or Discovery Channel, where they would ask that question and then show really bad B-roll of
I think
don't really look like the fighters.
But now we're 21st century. I think a lot of more things are possible.
We can do better.
We will do better. We will do better.
Follow up from Alex. Do you see this being integrated to make a better in-game experience for, say, EA Sports, UFC games, and upcoming esports boxing club?
Definitely. I mean, of course, like data analysis, it's not only constrained to real fights. Like we can also, I mean, if we're talking about like esports, for example, we could do the same things for esports. We can see like what type of style is someone applying when they're playing EA Sports, UFC, and helping you in better preparing for playing against this opponent, for example. I think it doesn't change much. I think it's similar logic.
Interesting. That is a really interesting variable. So somebody is trying to be John Jones and the other person is whoever. But so you have the character's attributes, but you also have the player's attributes to consider.
Exactly. It's 1A. I mean, as most players, they also tend to choose a certain type of player, like a avatar, right? So this is definitely one variable that goes into that. But then all the rest is also like how they're using this avatar to.
That's fascinating. I'm super excited.
It's cool. No, thanks for your feedback. I mean, no, it's really. I mean, I share your enthusiasm on this because it's so much like for someone that has the passion for martial arts, I think all these things are really exciting. At the same time, of course, you want to keep traditions. You want to keep the traditions alive, this kind of thing. So the challenge will also be, of course, like how can what we provide be organically integrated in what the martial arts is today.
Yeah, no, that's great. So where can we follow? What's your website? Where can we what if somebody wanted to, let's say somebody wanted to invest in your business? What does that process look like?
Yeah, so the first go-to is definitely our website. So it's combatiq.io. So you can find all the information there. We are also on LinkedIn and Twitter. Like myself personally, I'm not, but my co-founder Tim, he is. Like he's like, I didn't say like I'm more taking care of the technical side of the business, whereas Tim is more on the business side.
Yeah.
So whoever is interested in investing in this, feel free to reach out to Tim as well. So you can find his email address also on our website, and we have a contact form as well. So you want to reach out through that as well.
Yeah. So this is we primarily talk about Bitcoin related stuff, BSV in particular. I'm a big fan of BSV and its data capabilities. The question by Carboncraft is this being built on BSV? I think there's a presumption that anybody on the show is working in the BSV space. Why? What exactly are you putting in the blockchain? Like why? Most people ask, well, why use a blockchain at all in this situation? I would guess that it would be for the sake of fairness and public auditability of your data. But is there anything else going on? And what does that process look like as the technical guy in the company?
Yeah. So at this point, yes, I can say yes. We're building on BSV at this point. As I said, like we went through this incubator program and we got training on how to build on BSV and got to see the advantages and how to use different APIs and stuff so that we can build on BSV. So as of now, how we're using it is, and you can check that out on our MVP, is I mentioned before, we publish all the predictions for all the fights that we're currently making on the BSV blockchain. And what this basically means is that we publish the name of the event, the name of the fight, the name of the fighters, who's going to win, what percentage, and all the different odds that we calculated using our machine learning algorithms. And it's public available, so you can just go on what's on chain and check out the different transaction IDs that are out there. This is as of now, this is still, we are pre-fight predictions. At some point, we're going to move to real time, like in-game predictions. So this also going to use the similar logic. And then if we think a bit along the way, is I mean, once Web3 is going to become a thing, hopefully, not only the predictions themselves, but also the computations can actually be executed on the blockchain to make it, again, like to make it more audible, to make it more transparent on how we actually got to these. And then finally, also another thing, of course, is something we discuss is NFTs. Of course, when we're talking about metaverse, sure. And in this space, we can
make sense.
Also work with that.
What is the nature of the data? So when you put the data, is it just like a list in op return currently, or are you creating some kind of token system that publishes the data in a certain way? Like what does it look like? In a little, my audience has a mix of technical and non-technical. So for the technical people, I'm sure they'd like to know, how is it being published to the blockchain?
Yeah, so you said it right. So at this point, it's an op return. We publish a list of all the information for each fight as an op return for each fight separately.
Very cool. Bits complicated asking, is there a working demo? You mentioned there's some video and stuff on the site. Can anybody tinker with this? Is there any open SDK or anything like that?
So at this point, we still keep the MVP not completely publicly accessible, but anyone who's interested can reach out to us and they can get access to it. So it's currently like still protected by a password. But once you get reach out to us, we can give you that access, and then you can play around with stuff. So this is just like we just want to still, because we're still in development, so we don't want it to be out completely. So if someone's interested, they can just get in touch with us, and we can find a way to showcase.
Yeah, I feel something like this has to be closed source basically forever, right? There's not like an opportunity to open source this information. That's got to be the valuable part of the company, right?
Yeah. At least until the patent is filed, I think we have to keep things a bit under the.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's that's super cool. I really and I mean it when I say, like, I'm normally not super because a lot of the people that I talk to, I work with in the Bitcoin space. But for me, this is when I become a fanboy. So when we talk about fight stuff. Is there so you mentioned you have a coach that is you've consulted with you or is partnered in some way. Are there certain camps that you have worked with, or are there ones that you'd like to work with? I imagine the research and development process is unique because every camp is going to have different styles and all of that too. What does that process look like?
So we have, as I said, like one of our advisors from our advisory board, like who's kind of following our startup, the development of our startup, is a former athlete and currently a UFC coach for the big guys. Like she's out there with she's posting pictures with all of them every week. Like we can see all these guys that you can see on TV. She's working with them. So this is a great contact for us because it gives us a lot of really expert knowledge on what we need to put into our algorithm so that they make sense for the coaches and athletes. Then we also talk, of course, to a lot of gyms and camps, as you said, locally here, because it's also easier for us, like for example in Switzerland, so we can just easily go out and test our technology quickly with them. But at the same time, as I said, we're also in touch with some bigger ones on the international scale. So we already did some initial tests with them to show a bit like what our technology is capable of, and hopefully very soon we will be able to go there to do some tests in presence as well with these camps. I cannot disclose the names at this point, but I think very soon you will know who we're talking about.
For sure. So Alex Moon, the executive producer of the show, and Alex is also hell of a good boxer, and I'm quite a bit bigger than him. I probably have 75 pounds on him. I'm a ultra heavyweight. I walk around about 265 pounds, and so he's also a solid dude. And we were in Vegas in January, and they have one of those punching machines where it measures the weight of your punch. And so I was like, oh, I got this in the bag, right? I'm And so I go up to it and I punch, and I don't even, it was 865 pounds or so, really good. Alex remembers 862 pounds per square foot, which I was very happy with. It put me, I may have even been at the top of the list and was like, okay, cool, I got this in the bag. And then Alex shows up and gives like, I mean, he's warming his hips up, and I was like, oh boy, here we go. And he goes and swings, and he hits a 942 pound per square inch punch, which, to me, I'm looking at and like, okay, do I throw my back out or something trying to beat him here? I decided against it ultimately, but I think he won like a GPS unit or something for winning the whole day.
Nice.
And Dash Cam, he's in here dancing and gloating. So, but is there that sort of thing? You see the occasional middleweight or something that just has like incredible knockout power, which is a division where it's a little hit or miss whether they have enough weight behind the punch to actually knock you out and that kind of thing. How do you measure for those sorts of extreme variable kind of things? So you get guys that just sort of have something that looks like a superpower for whatever reason. It might be some micro physiological thing or whatever. Do you account for I can't remember what you would call that, like standard deviations or something like that, where you measure somebody that for whatever reason just seems to have just has a lot more knockouts for their division than anybody else? And do you how does a computer treat something like that? Or somebody with like a really unorthodox style would be another thing. That how do you treat that if the computer basically gets confused by that it doesn't make sense? So that's my convoluted question, but I'm curious how you treat people that are outside of the standard deviation, basically.
Yeah. I mean, I think the first thing about the computer is that they can actually identify this. So, for example, I don't know, the two of you, when you were punching that machine, like, did you have a feeling like he was actually like 80 points above you, or did it look the same more or less?
So I actually, it's funny, when I threw the first punch, I went and took like a big step, and then it occurred to me that if I overthrow, I'm going to hit the back of the machine. So I whiffed it, my first one. I kind of grazed it because I panicked.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, hold on, let me actually take this seriously.
Okay.
And then and then I did the same thing. I took a serious punch at it, like did the same, like, okay, here, I'm going to just throw a good straight and whatever. And you rock the machine, it's super loud and all that. I was like, okay, this is good. But he had a clearly, I mean, this was almost 100 pounds per square foot more than my punch. And so it just, there was definitely a larger thud. It was clear that he had won before even the numbers ticked up.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, so what I was about to say is that with the machine, we can actually, I mean, first of all, we can totally take this into account by the ability to actually identify this. So we can, for example, the two punches that you have made, identify why his punch was rated much stronger. So we can analyze all the different joints. We can analyze basically how the transmission of the force went from, I don't know where it came from the hip, from how he transmitted the whole movement from the ground into that ball. And so all of this, like, also just simple stuff like like speed of punches and like explosiveness and the force of a punch. All of this we can easily identify, and once we can identify it, we can of course take into account, like, if someone gets hit and we know that this hit was just like, I don't know, like super much stronger than another hit that he took, then it kind of makes sense that someone would get knocked out by this, right?
That's interesting. So, for example, if he just had better pivot on his feet, and maybe I was flat-footed, for example,
Exactly.
Okay.
Or how if he made he had much more rotation in his hip or whatever. Or it was just you were maybe in not a great balance where he was, all these kind of things. So.
Yeah, maybe I'm just too big and too tall to have been as effective as him. So that's funny. And then the same thing, like I still, even playing like a video game, for example, I don't even like to grapple in EA UFC game because it's kind of like, this is
They improved it a
what
bit.
What am I doing here, right?
They improved the game mechanics a little bit, but yeah, still it's a bit boring.
Yeah. So I'm curious of that. Like for people that don't grapple, you can definitely tell some for whatever reason, you'll go against a guy who seems small. Typically, the heaviest guy in the room to grapple with is not the biggest guy in the room, and it's just a function of that microscopic technique that you can't you can't see it. You have to feel it.
Yeah.
So, do you have a way to maybe add sensors to the system, that kind of thing, to get the sort of? So, my wife, for example, she also is a grappler, and she was an MMA fighter. She was a pro for a couple of years, and she put a guy out at the gym about a month ago with just her shoulder pressure from side control. So she just passed his guard, and she's got him under control, and she's driving her shoulder in just to try to get him to relent and settle down. And she choked him unconscious with just the shoulder pressure. And so that's the kind of thing that, you don't see often, but it's an indicator of a very particular skill set that is a mix of her technique, her physiology, and everything else involved. Can you add extra sensors or that kind of thing to get measurement of pounds per square inch on things like that?
So the fascinating thing here is that we don't need to add any sensors to do these kind of things, because nowadays technology is so. I mean, we want to go completely sensorless. Like we just want to like basically from images being able to quantify a lot of these things. And when we talk about grappling, it's definitely a more challenging one, as I said in the beginning. But it allows once the models are accurate enough to really trace all the different micro movements that someone's doing in the grappling situation, you can then start to understand, like, why did someone gain an advantage? You can see, like, what are these little movements that someone does in preparation before the decisive moment comes, right?
Interesting.
And this is with the human eye, it's very difficult. But once this is done by a machine, like, you can get all these different data points and you put things together. It will be possible. This is what we're working on. So this
fascinating.
Is
so something like maybe beginning to see muscles flex in the core before they even make the physical movement.
Yeah, and maybe also like which directions they're moving and what type of like where you put the pressure. You can see also a bit by how your balance was working, right? Like where your center of gravity is and all these kind of and there's a lot of math and physics behind it. But yeah, using it in the right way will allow you to quantify all these kind of things.
And I want to come out and take a field trip and see your lab.
You're
work.
welcome. You're welcome. Yeah, sure, of course. Or we come over. Like no. At some point we're gonna be there, and then let's have a chat together.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I'm here in South Florida, so there's American Top Team, and there's the Fight Sports BJJ team is down here. They're like
awesome.
South Florida's got a huge fight community. So
yeah,
if you wanted to get some data points from
definitely. No, we're always happy to work with top athletes and gyms to collect data and to help them as well, to give them something that can be useful for them as well.
Very cool. So your team is 2 currently, or do you have other people that are working with you as part of the core team, or is it just people that are outside consultants, or what does that look like?
So at this point, so until a few months ago, we were mainly Tim and I as the 2 co-founders. But then ever since things were ramping up, we are starting to build our core team at this moment, and we are working with 6 different developers from all over the world. So we have developers in Switzerland, in Germany, in Italy, and in Brazil. Good people, all at least with a master degree. Half of them even with working towards a PhD degree. So I mean, typically for this space, we need people that have a certain type of skill set, critical thinking, and that's what we're looking for. And I'm happy to have this great team with me. So we're moving forward, and I think soon we're going to expand even more, because there's a lot of things to be done.
And for sure. So any questions you wish I asked? Is there anything you really wanted to get out here that maybe we didn't discuss?
No, not in particular. I just really appreciate the chance to talk to you, to show a bit, to show to the CoinGeek community what Combat IQ is doing. I think my co-founder Tim already did an interview with Rebecca
Sure.
and hash it out.
Yep.
But no, I really enjoyed this talk with you, and yeah, anyone who has any questions for me or for Tim about the business, about any type of collaborations you wanna set up or investments, whatever, feel free to visit our webpage. You can find all the contact information there.
That's incredible. Thank you so much. I'm going to let you go. I'll do like a 4.5 minute close by myself, but I really am looking forward to coming and hanging out. So next time I make my way over
Absolutely.
there,
Absolutely.
I'm dropping in, and you're welcome to come anytime to South Florida.
You as well. You're more than welcome. Thank you very
Awesome.
much, Kurt.
Thank you. So it's funny. We've had such a chaotic and dramatic week in the blockchain culture stuff, which always drives me nuts. I don't know how long some of you have been watching this show, but as long as I've been doing the CoinGeek Weekly live stream, I have been challenging people to basically shut up and build a business. In fact, something like the Block Dojo is fulfillment of something that I was calling out about 2 years ago, that, hey, we need extra investment, extra incubators, people that understand business, understand the science of building a business and turning it into real value, because there's not really a reason to use a blockchain at all if you're not going to do something with it that couldn't be done any other way. And the cool thing is that BSV specifically has the ability to scale up, that you can build it one time and not have to worry that there's a big protocol change coming. Now we need to retool our whole stack. We're going to need to hire people that are going to work with the new protocol that's coming, and you can focus on your business. And I firmly believe that the longer that the protocol remains predictable, solid, and boring, the more it fades into the background, the more businesses like Combat IQ will say, we could potentially build on Ethereum, or we could go build on, whatever else out there, and say, but we'd have to deal with the drama of that. Our business would become about tokenomics, and then we're worried about the price of the coin as a part of our business, as some other variable to consider. Whereas in the BSV space, you have the ability to say, okay, we can just build it once and we can focus on our company, and we can use the network for what it is, which is just a distributed database that predictably puts data out to the nodes that is mined with proof of work and then stays there forever to be reanalyzed, repurposed, reused, resold, etc., etc., etc. And so that's been my goal for a long time, is to encourage entrepreneurs like Christian and like a whole bunch of other guests that we've had on the show, but also a lot of the people that are coming through these Block Dojo cohorts, the kind of people that want to build a company because they want to change the world with their business idea, as opposed to their crypto token investment opportunity. Blah. And so I'm super excited. I want to have more shows. If you recall last week, I said, I really, really don't want to have drama shows and talk about Bitcoin politics. I really just don't care at this point. And when it's exciting and it's in the news, like, we got to address it or whatever. But I want more entrepreneurs to be on this show. So if you're watching right now and you've got a business idea, or you got a thing that is getting real close to launching and you'd like the world to hear about it, please reach out to myself or Alex Moon and let's get it scheduled. Let's put your business in the spotlight, because that's what I care about. And ultimately, the reason for that is because business leads to cooperation much more than sort of predatory pump and dump investment schemes and everybody bickering about your token and that token, and are we getting listed or delisted from Binance or whatever else. It's all nonsense. It's frankly immature. It shows how immature that the blockchain space is in general, but it is a really, really good data tool, data integrity tool. The two things I've always said Bitcoin was invented to solve was reduction of payment friction and increase of data integrity. So when I hear about a data science protocol that is going to change the way that fight sports work, and the data is going to go on blockchain so that it can be analyzed in a way that is open and clear and auditable, that's awesome. That makes me very happy. So let's be optimistic. Let's do business. Let's cooperate. And ultimately, our cooperation should give us more and more opportunities to be good to each other, which is the thing that outside of the blockchain and everything else that I care about most. So If you're still watching, thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, hit the alert bell so you know every time we go live. I got Alex Moon asking me if I want to do political questions. How many political questions? We're right at the top of the hour. Should we do it? Are they really, really good? Let me know, Mr. Moon. What's your take on the Lopp BSV blog? Okay. All right. I'll take the political questions. A couple of them. As far as the Lopp block list goes, it I don't know. It strikes me as something really immature. Like, I can't believe how bizarre and immature and lame that people are, that because we disagree about the way that numbers can be written to a distributed database, we're going to, send out censorship lists and these kind of things. It just is, it's bizarre to me. Like, I disagree with Jameson Lopp about all kinds of things about Bitcoin. I would totally have a beer with the guy or have coffee or chit chat. Like, I don't understand why there's got to be we must maintain the echo chamber. That indicates to me that there's fear, and that's when all kinds of bad decisions get made. This is why people start hurting each other. It's when they're scared. And it's another thing I really like about martial arts is that you really stop fearing people once you realize, like, hey, most punches don't hurt, and fights are a lot more complicated than they look on TV. So that's how I feel about it. I think it's lame. In some jurisdictions, it might even be illegal, but mostly I just feel bad for him. It's just a weak look, in my opinion. So what else we got, Mr. Moon? How many questions? I can't move my BSV out of the Exodus wallet. Why? I'm not positive, but I guess their node's out of sync, and that will be a problem. So if they can't keep their node up because it is underpowered, they're not going to be able to broadcast. So that's probably what's up. However, with Exodus provides you private keys in a way that is readable in Electrum SV. So if you really need to move your coins, you can download Electrum SV. You can export your private key. You can view your private key in the toolbar, and you can copy and paste it into Electrum. So you import it as a new Electrum wallet, and then you can move your coins because the Electrum servers are up and working just fine. So if you're really in a pinch, like, that is a way out. Like, your private keys are still valid even if their node is offline. So you can do that. Bo Miller, please, if you advise, what are the best miners to purchase to make some extra BSV? Also, how many do you think are sufficient to have, or is it better to join a pool? You absolutely should join a pool. Solo mining, even at BSV's difficulty, is approaching impossible from a predictability standpoint. But if you wanted to buy one, I mean, there's a lot of things. I still think your best dollars per terahash is going to be like 110 terahash units from either Bitmain or WhatsMiner, and we actually sell them at Gorilla Pools. If you want to send me a DM, I can hook you up with Kevin, and he can give you a quote. And if you really want to do that, that's totally fine. But I would recommend, if you run at home, and you probably shouldn't run one at home, but if you do, definitely do not run more than one. They become a fire hazard. They just make your electric bill go through the roof and all of that. They suck to run. It's very hot, and it's very loud. So this is why we offer hosting at Gorilla Pool too. So if you wanted to do something like that, please reach out to me. I'll connect you with Kevin. He can give you a quote and get that all figured out for you. But yeah, the top of the line stuff, the absolute premium, I wouldn't even buy them for myself. Like the new the M50 WhatsMiners, I think are a bad deal still, because they're in demand because they're hot. But yeah, we should just do like a mining Q&A. Maybe we'll do it on a Gorilla Pool channel. So, all right, I'm going to let everybody go. Remember to be good to each other, everybody. Please tune in every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern time. I got to run. I'm actually going to the Citadel grand opening barbecue party with some of my friends. So I will see you soon, friends, and I will see you, fans and friends and viewers and everybody, next week. Take care and goodbye.
Right now, millions are building the internet of value. But the best version of this inevitable future isn't possible unless the data that fuels it can be exchanged securely and with confidence. This is a critical moment in defining our shared future. That's why nChain offers the tools to protect the data we'll need to build that future. The Internet of Value works because we do. Join us in securing the tomorrow we all share. nChain. Data without question.